Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new video series brought to you by Rockford Fosgate and RTTI, the Rockford Technical Training Institute. In this video series, we're going to walk you through step-by-step installation of our new audio kits developed for the Yamaha YXZ side-by-side vehicle. So stay tuned, we've got a lot of good information for you. See you in a second. Alright guys, I am now joined by Brad with our new product development team, and he is going to help walk us through the installation of our MOTO-REAR2 kit. So Brad, what all is included in this kit?
In the kit, we're including a pair of our prime mini weight can speakers, the rear clamps, as well as the vehicle-specific wire harness.
Alright, sounds good. What's the first thing that we need to do to get this started?
The first thing we're going to do is remove the hood and move on from there.
Alright, let's get started. Alright guys, so we're ready to start the disassembly process. As you can see, we've gone ahead and removed the roof and the doors from the vehicle just to give us better access and visibility for the video purposes. So obviously during your install, you're not going to have to do this unless you choose to. So Brad, what's the first thing we need to do to start this process?
The first thing we're going to do is remove the hood to gain access to the back of the pocket and some of the factory wiring. Now we're going to use our 4mm Allen wrench to remove the top two screws so the hood will come off.
Alright, so now that we have the hood out of the way, we're ready to move to the inside and continue the disassembly process. The next thing we need to do is remove the passenger seat, specifically starting with the seat bottom. To do so, it's very simple. All you have to do is reach in, lift up on the front, pull it out, and once it's out of the way, we're able to go ahead and remove the seat back assembly by removing 4 12mm bolts holding it in place.
Now that we have the seat out of the car, we can go ahead and remove the top of the center console. This will give us access to some plastic rivets and bolts that we need to remove the side cover as well. With that out of the way, we can now gain access to our top rivets and then remove the bolts around the outside of the panel. Now that we have all the fasteners removed from our side panel, we can go ahead and remove it and set it aside. Now that we have our side panel out of the vehicle, we're going to do one last thing before we move to the bench. We're going to remove 2 plastic rivets from the driver's side. Now this will allow the panels to move a little bit as we're routing our wires forward.
Alright, so before we can install our rear mini cans onto the vehicle, we need to do some prep work. For example, we have to assemble the clamp and cable assembly and then be able to install it into the mini can. So Brad, what's one of the first things that we need to do to get this process started?
The first thing we're going to need to do is locate a couple parts. Our main one is going to be our wire. We're going to take our wire, pass it up through here, take our half clamp, and assemble it using the nuts and bolts. Now when you do this, you don't want to go too tight yet until you have everything situated. Now also to note, we do include a safety strap and a retainer for that as well. And when we assemble it and tighten it down, this will help prevent anything from being lost if it were to fall off the vehicle.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now that we've got the lower clamp assembly put together, one other thing to talk about before we actually install this on the vehicle is the orientation of the speaker itself in the can. Now typically these cans are designed to be underhung mount such as this. As you can see, the speaker orientation reads correct. Since this is going to be mounting on the roll cage of the vehicle, they're going to be mounted sideways such as this. If you choose from an aesthetic standpoint, you can rotate the speaker simply by removing the 4 screws that hold it in place. Rotate it 90 degrees either direction, depending if it's a left or right mount situation, and reinstall those screws. This way, whenever you're looking at it from the front of the vehicle, the speakers will read correct. This, of course, does not affect the sound or performance of the speaker, so it's entirely up to you if you decide you want to do this. Alright guys, so now with our cans and clamp assemblies prepped, we're ready to go ahead and install them on the rear roll cage of the vehicle. Now as you can see, we've gone ahead and pre-assembled the can to the lower clamp assembly. Now certainly you can do it either way. You can install just the clamp assembly with the cable attached and then install the can afterwards, or you can go ahead and pre-assemble it this way. The other thing that you need to decide when you're getting ready to do this assembly is which direction you're going to route the wiring. Now the harness that comes with the kit is able to go from the roll bar forward down this down tube assembly into the vehicle, or if you choose, you can go backwards down the roll cage and then run it forward. The cables are long enough to go either way. In the event you decide you want to install a rear storage box on the vehicle, we recommend routing this forward and then down the down tube of the frame assembly. So to install this, you're going to place the can and clamp assembly approximately 4 to 4.5 inches down the roll cage from this front down tube. Then you're going to take the clamp with the upper saddle assembly, and it does have an embossed Diamond R logo on it, so you want to make sure that this is positioned so you can read it correctly. Otherwise, people are going to laugh at you when you're cruising through the trails or the dunes because you've got your stuff upside down. The clamp assembly in place. Take one of the 2 bolts that held the clamp assembly together, line up the bolt holes, thread the first bolt in, take the second, line it up as well, and thread it in place. As you can see with the can assembly on here, it is a little awkward, so that's why I said you might want to install the clamp ahead of time or have a buddy help you out and hold it for you. Alright, so now that we have the cables passed through the back wall to the center console area, we're ready to go ahead and route them along the center console up into the hood area to make our final connections. Now one thing you want to make sure is when you're passing the wires along the center console, you want to keep them to the back side of the main harness. This will prevent any bulges from the side panel when you go to reinstall it later.
With our wiring run forward, we're ready to make the connections at the radio. Now, if you have a stage 1 or 2 system already, you're just going to connect it to the rear outputs of the PMX2 harness.
Likewise, if you're installing the system on a stage 3 system, which is already amplified, you'll have the amplifier harness run up to the dash area as well. So you're just simply going to connect the rear motor harnesses directly to the rear output of the amplifier harness. Subsequently, if you're installing this on a stage 5 system, where you're already going to have the front, upper, and lower pods installed, they are already going to be plugged into the amplifier harness. So at this point, you need to kind of make a decision.
Now you can go ahead and connect them to the rear outputs of the PMX2 harness and be done. But you can also decide if you want to unamplify the uppers or lowers, connect those to the PMX harness, and then connect a rear moto to the amplifier that was already in the system.
So at this point, we're ready to go back over to the vehicle and make the final connections. Alright, so now that we have the final connections made up here at the radio harness, we're ready to go ahead, fire the system up, make sure everything's working properly, and if it is, we can go ahead and button it up and get it back out on the road. Alright guys, so that completes it for this installation. As you can see, it was pretty straightforward and only took a little bit of time. So Brad, before we go, anything you'd like to add?
Remember, if you have any questions during, before, or after the installation, give our tech team a call. They'll be more than happy to help you out.
Alright, well that pretty much wraps it up for us. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again in another video.